Hey eBay sellers, you have landed on eBay the right way. This is episode number 71, and today's date is July 27th, 2022. Today's guest is Zachary McDore. You may have seen some of his very cool and high dollar finds on the Facebook group. He will be talking about an ebook he wrote with a different kind of reselling perspective. It's 39 pages, and the link is below the podcast. And it appears to be free if you get the Kindle version and read it on a cloud reader. It was free for me. So anyway, I just wanted to give him a shout out for putting that together, and it may have some information useful for your eBay business. The name of the ebook is Get Flipping Rich: How to Get Off the eBay Hamster Wheel and Finally Get Rich. Okay, and now for the chat with Zachary.
Hey everybody, today we are chatting with Zachary McDore, who you may recognize from the Facebook group, and he has some amazing high dollar sales. So we're going to get into all that, and you were even brave enough to post a fail.
Well, I have a lot of fails, no doubt.
So say hi to the listeners.
Hi, listeners. How are you?
Good. And tell us where you're located.
I'm located in Bath, Maine. It's a very beautiful little city. Well, we call it a city, but it's like 8,500 people. So it's really a little town. Great place.
Is that near where Stephen King is from?
Stephen King's up in Bangor, about 2 hours away.
Okay.
I went to college up there, and I used to see him walking around in the mall. But
Really?
yeah. Yeah, I worked in a little store in the mall, and there was a store next to my store that sold rugs. And he went in there one day and he picked out a rug. Then he came back the next day with his wife, and she told him, "Hell no, you can't have it." So
He picked an ugly rug.
Yeah, it had a big camel on it. So yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't buying a rug to roll up a dead body inside of.
It could be. I don't know. That could be.
Okay, great. Well, before we jump in, you also work a full-time, or probably more than full-time job. You said you work 6 days a week.
Yeah, I drive the city bus here, which is a little bitty bus. So I pick up old ladies and I drop them off at the grocery store. And on Saturdays, I work at the transfer station, which is where I get most of my stuff. So
okay, what is a transfer station?
It's a place where people can bring in their trash and their recycling. There's a town next to mine that doesn't have like pickup, So everybody just comes in on Saturday with their stuff, and we have a big dumpster that people throw their big stuff in. I find a lot of interesting things.
Okay, so that sounds equivalent to Casey's Recycling Center.
Basically, yes.
Where it's just discards, stuff people don't know what to do with, and you're a little trash elf coming behind.
That's me.
Finding treasures. Okay, because that makes sense now, because you do sell a lot of electronics, or that's what I'm seeing, or really old computer stuff.
That's right.
Okay.
All that stuff comes in, and along with boxes and bubble wrap too. So it all works out great.
All right.
Fantastic.
So you've been selling on eBay since what year?
I've been selling on eBay since '99.
Okay.
Off and on.
Great. So let's go back in time and talk about what got you started the very first time you started selling.
All right. I thought I'd take you back to 1987 when I was 13.
Okay.
My father saved up a couple $1,000 and he offered me either 3 days at Disney World or a computer. And I was a nerd, so I chose the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And the first game I played, or one of my favorite games, was called Taipan, which was a trading game where you were a ship captain and you would just buy stuff at one port for a low price, and then you'd go sell it somewhere else for a higher price. And this is the game that opened my eyes to this. I think before that, I thought you just had to work by the hour to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I played that game and I was like, this is so much smarter than working, buying something for a low price and selling it for a high price. And
Mm-hmm.
you played the game well, you ended up a billionaire by the end of it. So I sold my first item a few years later when I was in college. I went to a yard sale with my brother and I found this cool laser guided record player where you would put the record in and close the lid, and you would actually type in the number of the song you wanted. And the laser would read the record and put the needle down in the right spot. It was cool. So I had to fight my brother for that. But I bought it for $5 and I listed it in this penny saver thing we have here for 60. And the guy showed up and paid me $60 for it. And on his way out the door, he saw an old tube radio that my roommate had given me, gave me $20 for that. So I remember just standing in the kitchen with $80 in my hand, and I realized I had invested $5 of my money in like 20 minutes of my time. And at that time, I was working at a grocery store for $5 an hour. So this represented like 15 hours of my labor.
Right.
I was like, I was right. This is a lot smarter than working. So when eBay came out in 99, I sold my first item. It was a set of Kung Fu instructional VHS tapes. One of them was supposed to teach you the monkey style and one the dragon style or whatever. But I got these at a yard sale for $12 and they sold for $86. And I remember bouncing around the room. And then for the next 2 years, I sold a ton of stuff and made a lot of money. And I thought I was some kind of freaking genius at it. Because for the first year, especially, everything I listed sold for a profit. And this is before smartphones. So I couldn't even look things up.
Right.
I'd buy things and list them and they'd sell. So I thought I was smart, but I realized later that I had just stumbled into one of the biggest gold mines in history, which was the first couple of years of eBay.
Right.
Before that, you couldn't just buy anything you wanted anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted a book that was out of print, you had to go find it in a thrift store or something. So when eBay came out, everybody just started buying everything and everything would sell. But then 9/11 happened and the dot-com bubble burst and the economy sucked. And suddenly I couldn't sell anything anymore. So I pretty much gave up and spent years and years just kind of listing a few things every 6 months or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 10 years ago, I got a smartphone so I could actually look things up before I sold them, which was a game changer.
Yeah.
And then I started driving a garbage truck for a living. So that's when I started finding all the free stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
And the other good thing about driving a garbage truck is I had lots of time to listen to audiobooks and think about how rich I was going to get when I finally started this eBay business. But unfortunately, and I came up with this whole philosophy that I thought was so smart about how I was going to do it. But working 14 hours a day, I had no actual time to list much of anything.
Right.
So I was just bringing home all this stuff, that planning to sell it and hardly ever actually listing anything. And this went on for years and it was very frustrating. And then about 10 months ago, I took this job driving the bus, and I actually work from 6 in the morning until 8, and then I'm off until noon, and then I work from noon to 6. Suddenly I have this chunk of time in the day. And it took me about 6 months to get my act together and get my office cleaned out. But 4 months ago, I put my whole plan into action and started selling. And so far, it's been great.
Okay. So I love that you work it into your existing, I don't want to say it's a real job. It's a W-2 job, right?
Right.
So do you get benefits?
Oh yeah, I get good like state retirement and benefits.
Okay. So yeah, that's necessary for a lot of people. So that's, you're making it all work, and
Sure.
you're already out there. So when you're not driving the bus, do you switch back to your own vehicle?
Yeah. Where the buses park is 1 mile from my house, so
Okay.
I could
Okay.
walk it if I want to. Yeah.
So you go switch vehicles, get your own vehicle, do your treasure hunting, and then head back to your afternoon shift.
That's right.
Okay.
It's kind of a dream come true.
It does. Yeah, it sounds like it. Now I want to segue to the ebook that you wrote
Right.
about eBay selling.
I'm going to talk about everything here. Probably it's very small.
Okay, great. So yeah, give us the Cliff Notes version or the whole version, because there's a lot of math in there.
A lot of math. Well, yeah, and I'm not too good at math, but I put some in there. So, yeah, I was kind of like this garbage man philosopher, I guess. I was spending all this time thinking about eBay and listening to books. And, I came up with this philosophy, I guess. And I think it goes back to that Taipan game I mentioned, because you become a billionaire in the game. And so I thought, how is this possible? And I came up with 2 reasons. One is because throughout the game, you're constantly increasing your volume. So you start out selling a couple things with a little money, and then you're selling large things all at once. But the other thing is, the game is so simple, there's nothing to spend your money on in the game, except for like repairs to your ship and then more inventory. So you're forced by the limitations of the game to reinvest all your money into the business, which is part of the reason you get rich, I guess. My next influence was the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
He explains that people who want to become wealthy, it's not really about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep and what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
People who want to become wealthy usually spend as little as they can and invest as much as they can, and then take the money from their investments and reinvest it.
Mm-hmm.
Next guy was a guy named Jim Rohn. You ever heard of him? He's a motivator.
Absolutely. Yep.
So his advice was work a 40-hour job to pay your bills, but in your spare time, start a side business whose only purpose is to make you wealthy. So as he put it, work 40 hours on making a living and 15 hours making a fortune. And the money from your side business isn't for your bills. It's just to build up into something. And then finally, there's a game I found online. It's called the Double to a Million game by a guy named Stuart Goldsmith. And it's based on the old riddle where someone says, would you rather have a penny doubled every day for 30 days or $1 million, which I'm sure you've heard of, right?
I have not.
No?
No.
Which would you really rather have?
Well, I would have to do the math. It probably is the less obvious one, maybe the penny doubling.
Right. Penny doubled 30 times is like $3.5 million or something.
Mm-hmm.
So he figured if you start with a penny and double it 27 times, you end up with $1 million and change. And that's how the game works. You're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to go out and find a penny on the street and then find a way. Step 1, double it to 2 cents, and step 1. And I thought I would get my kids involved with that game. And we started about 2 years ago. And in the very short time I had to sell, we got up to about $3,000 over about a year.
Nice.
And at the end of about a year ago, I realized that I was doing all the work. I was listing, selling, I was finding the stuff. And then I'd say, hey kids, we just made $100,
You mean I just made
Yeah.
it.
So that was my fault. I just find it easier to do everything myself. But I also realized I'm 48, and if I'm ever going to have a pile of money when I retire, I need to concentrate on my own eBay business.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended the game. I split the money between the 2 of them. So whenever they are ready to start, they each have like $1,500. And I started over from scratch with all the junk that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But I had all this kicking around in my mind, and I was listening to Dave Ramsey and these kind of traditional investment stuff. And they would all say the same thing. Like, if you invest your money in a mutual fund and make 10% a year, then you'll become a millionaire someday.
So are you a Dave Ramsey fan?
I am. I actually met him I shook his hand, and
Okay.
he still got the richest hand I've ever shaken, I have to say. I have a few little pieces of credit card that he cut up. And
Oh, okay. Did you do the debt-free scream thing?
I haven't done the scream. No.
Okay.
I listen to the show.
Yeah.
But him and all these people, they say, save and get 10% a year, you'll get rich. And I always compare that to eBay. What is 10% in a year? That's the eBay equivalent of buying something for $10 and selling it for 11 a year later.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if you can get rich at 10% a year, we're making 100% or 500% or 1,000% on our stuff.
Yeah. I mean, when you pull something free out of the trash and sell it for $300, that's way more than 10%.
It's a lot more than 10%. And so I realized that when it comes to investing, your success depends on the percent you're making on your investment and how fast you make your money.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody making 10% a year is not going to get rich as fast as someone making 10% a week. So I just started looking at eBay, and I'm like, this has got to be the greatest investment tool of all time, because compared to stocks, the percent that we're making is light years ahead.
Yeah. And who even wants to look at their retirement stuff right now? I haven't logged in 4 months because it just makes me cry. And I get scared, and I don't want to, I'm just going to look at it later.
Yeah, I've looked at mine, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's
not
sad.
Good. It's not good. But yeah, when you look at how much you're making on your stuff and how fast, if you're a quick flipper like me, I do almost all auctions. It's just light years ahead of any other investment I can think of. And there's a couple other reasons I think it's a good investment. Like, if you're an expert in the stock market, you still lose money all the time because no one really knows what the stock market's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're one of those Keno brothers from the Antiques Roadshow and you know everything possible there is to know about an antique chair, how would you lose money on it?
Right.
So the more of an expert you become, the less chance you could ever lose money.
Mm-hmm.
And with stocks, you always pay full price, whatever the selling price is right now. But we buy stuff for way less than what it's worth so that we can turn around right now and sell it.
Well, and our investment is so low that if it doesn't pan out, you're out a couple of dollars and your time.
That's right.
It's not like if you buy stocks and then they don't perform. And I've always looked at it the same as you. It's like, this is just a different way of investing. I'd rather have 500 items that I pay less than $5 for, but some of them are selling for over 100. So that's a much better return on your money.
Yes, that's right. And so I was like, wow, eBay, this has got to be the greatest investment other than buying Bitcoin back when it was 50 cents or something.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the best investment I can think of. But that led to an uncomfortable question, which is, then why haven't I made any? Why do I have no money? I've been doing this 20 years. And I realized that people just don't treat eBay as an investment, because the way you do an investment is you put the money in and you leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was doing, and what a lot of people are doing, is you kind of get on this eBay hamster wheel where you go buy stuff at the thrift store for a few dollars, and then you make a few $100, and then you spend it, and then you go back to the thrift store, and the money never really builds up into anything.
Mm-hmm.
Which made me feel like I was losing out on this opportunity. And it made me realize, another thing I realized, that the more expensive things are that you buy, usually there's more profit potential in them. So buying coffee mugs, you might be able to make 10 or 20 bucks, but if you're flipping cars, you might be able to make 2,000 or 3,000. And people who flip houses make like 50 or 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a guy up in northern Maine a few years ago that was in the news, and he bought an entire lake, or like all the land around it, for $1 million, and immediately split it in half and listed each half for $1 million. And I don't know how that worked out for him, but if he had sold that, it was $1 million profit in one flip.
Mm-hmm.
He needed to have $1 million to buy the land in the first place.
Right.
So I realized that by not letting my money build up, I was not able to move up into these higher price, higher profit stuff, And so I kind of set this goal for myself to build up to $10,000 in my account and not spend any of it. Then when I get to 10,000, look for either cars or something. As a kid, I heard on Dave Ramsey, 19 years old with $300,000 in the bank, all
Mhm.
from flipping four-wheelers and ATVs. So maybe I'll look into that. I don't know. But I'm 4 months into it, and I've gone from $200 in my account to about 5,000 already.
Nice.
I'm like halfway to my goal.
So you're just not you're not spending any of the profits. You're just reinvesting everything back into the business or savings.
Right.
Okay.
So the other way I look at eBay, I look at it like a game, sort of. Have you ever heard of Mr. Money Mustache?
Yes.
Okay. He's an early retirement guy that like retired when he was 30.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
And so this thing he says work is more fun when you don't need the money.
Mm-hmm.
In his case, he's talking about when you retire, when you're 30, you're probably still going to work somewhere.
Yeah.
But you don't need the money. You're doing it because you want to. So it's more fun. I wish I was in that position, but because I work 50 hours a week and I have a duplex that I rent out, I don't actually need the money from my eBay business. And so I'm able to do it as a game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do it for fun, really. So it's like when I was a kid and I wanted to play Taipan in real life. That's how I feel. And because of that, it is more fun and it's really stress-free. I really admire people that sell like full time.
Mm-hmm.
The thought of it scares me to death.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to, I admire them because I can't imagine waking up on May 1st and realizing I have to make $4,000 or I can't pay my bills.
Right.
Scares me to death. It seems like it would take the fun out of it. But
Well, and if you look at like the guys on Shark Tank, all the sharks, that's what they do. They made their money and they invest in businesses for fun. Like, oh, that looks like a fun product. I'll be on board with that, and it's not as much pressure, obviously, when you're financially secure like that. And then back to being a full-time seller, I kind of got into it out of necessity, lost my job, went through a divorce and just started selling stuff in the early days and it worked. And so I kept going. And so I kind of looked at it in reverse at the end of every year. It's like, here's how much I made and here's what it paid for. And yes, it's sustainable as a way to earn a living. So as a single woman with two little kids, my focus was not retirement. It was, staying in that home and being able to pay my bills and not ever have to worry about getting downsized out, which had happened to me 3 times. The last time I was like, I'm done of other people having control over the way I earn a living. I'm done. And I just would rather be poor and work my butt off every day and have control of that than work my butt off every day to make somebody else rich. Didn't make sense to me.
I wanted to try it. We moved back to Maine. I lived in Oklahoma for 15 years. We moved back to Maine and we sold our house there and bought this house. We had some money. And I was like, why don't you let me try doing eBay full time just for like a few months? I've always wondered how much I could make if I did it like all day long. But my wife was like, does it come with health insurance? No.
Yeah.
So back to the garbage truck I went. But yeah, I think it would be fun.
Well, and I do have a lot of respect for full-timers. I was a full-timer for a long time until I got into other streams of income. And there's a reason I did that because it was just too up and down. It was too stressful. I laid awake at night worrying, am I going to be able to make the mortgage on time? And, am I going to be able to pay for this? And it was very stressful. When eBay started to change and it was more competitive and you didn't make as much as fast as before. So I do have a lot of respect for people that can do it full time because it's a lot of repetition. And I admit I'm a part-time seller now and I get bored. I cannot sit at the computer for hours and hours listing things. I got to have a variety in my day. I got to have breaks and get up and go somewhere or work on something else, do something creative, make a video, whatever it is. So those people that say they list 25 items a day have my full respect, because it takes a lot of focus and attention and dedication to achieve that every day or most days of the week.
It is. I think all of our dream is probably to have someone else do that stuff, and you can just go pick all day. That's what I would like.
Well, I like to do it myself because I learn more. When you're listing the items yourself, you're paying attention to more parts of the listing. Item specifics has changed. The pricing on this item is different now. So I like to have my hands in it myself. I've tried hiring people to do it for me, and I just did not like the results. I didn't like the keywords they chose. Like, I knew more than they did. So,
right. No one knows as much. Right.
And, I've just accepted that's not going to work for me. Even I've hired people to do my pictures, and either they're too meticulous. I'm like, this is just eBay. This is not going in the Smithsonian. This is just eBay. Or I just haven't found the right person, because maybe they're too sloppy. They do it too fast because they're getting paid by the item. And so it's like you said at the beginning, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself.
Exactly.
And I'm very picky. So it became very uncomfortable to, I was like the devil wears Prada lady, being picky about everything, but it mattered to me. So I just do it myself.
That's good. That's good. So yeah, I am kind of hardcore, I guess. But if anyone out there listening is kind of intrigued by this idea at all, you could start by just saving 10% of the money you make or whatever. It'll build up eventually. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be as hardcore as me.
Have you read that book called, I think it's One Red Paperclip?
Oh, yeah.
The guy starts off with a red paperclip and he sells that, and then he buys something else with it. He just keeps going, and he finally gets up to like a car or a house with all this money he keeps reinvesting.
Right.
I forget who the author is. I'll put that in at the end, but it's called One Red Paperclip. And it's this exact philosophy you're talking about of reinvesting.
Yeah. One thing I would really like to get is, I heard that there's a Scrooge McDuck comic where he loses all his money. Mm-hmm. He finds a nickel on the street and starts trading. And by the end, he's as rich as he was before.
Okay, well, let's move on and talk about some stuff that you've sold.
All right. I had a real hard time narrowing it down after 23 years.
I bet.
So what I did is I wrote down 5 or 6 places where I found things to sell. And I put down 2 or 3 sales from each one, so people can see that you can get money anywhere, I guess. So I thought I'd start with pawn shops. Have you ever bought anything at a pawn shop?
I've looked. I'm kind of intimidated by the pawn shop vibe.
Right.
Like, am I buying something that's stolen? That somebody used the money to buy drugs? Like, I just kind of stayed out of that world of, what's in a pawn shop. And no.
Well, I haven't done a lot. I only came up with 2. There was, I went into one in Oklahoma, and they had one of those Jugs brand pitching machines, like for pitching baseballs. I've sold like 4 of those, and they're good money. So they had it marked at $150, and I put it on Craigslist for $600, I think, and sold it.
Oh,
so
nice.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then right before I left Oklahoma, I went into one and I found a White's V3i metal detector. That was $500 plus tax. And I was like, how about just $500? How about that? And they said, okay. And I've bought and sold probably 30, 35 metal detectors over the years. And paid $500, and it sold for $1,100 and something on eBay. So that was nice. You had an interview with a metal detector lady, didn't you?
Yes, she is in up there in New England.
So, right up here.
Lynn was her name. Lynn Merritt. So shout
Yeah.
out to you, Lynn. But yeah, she does. She's in a metal detecting group and they have like competitions, and she has found such cool stuff. I mean, you just never know what's right under the surface, you know?
Yeah, I was insanely jealous from that interview because I've been kind of obsessed with it for years, but I'm too shy to go ask people if I can dig up their yard. So
Uh-huh.
once I found all the crap in my own yard, I was pretty much done, I guess. And I think she was heading off to a trip to England, and that's like my dream right there. So
Oh, right. She was. Yeah. Maybe we need
yeah.
to get her back on and give us an update.
So yeah, I think the most valuable thing I ever found was worth like $40, but I made a lot of money buying and selling metal detectors,
Well,
which
that's
is cool.
fun. Well, when you go to the beach, you see the mostly old men with their metal detector. And so I was there once and saw this guy every day around the same time. And they go when the tide's going back out so they can see what's been washed up. And so I started talking to him and I was like, what'd you find? What's the most valuable thing you've ever found? And he was really not that into it. He says, yeah, I really just do this to get a break from my wife.
Yeah, his wife didn't want to come. That's a
Kind of
surprise.
like guys that go golfing, it's just something to get out of the house. But
Yeah,
he
that's
said it's mostly crap. It's like tops to cans and bottle tops and
hmm
occasional jewelry, because if the water's cold, then your hands shrink and the jewelry comes off. So note to
right.
self, don't wear your jewelry in the ocean. Uh, but yeah, he hadn't really found anything valuable. He was just a hobby. He just liked doing it.
That's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
that's fun.
I wish I could do it more. I still have probably half a dozen of them in the closet. So maybe I'll use them someday.
Well, with your time so limited, you have to go where you're going to find things. And
Right.
metal detecting is kind of like garage sales. It's like you may spend all day and not find anything valuable.
True.
But with your transfer station, you're going to find stuff.
Yes, that is true. And it's free.
Yeah, and it's free.
All right, moving on to Walmart. Have you ever bought and sold things from there?
I actually have, yes.
All right. So back around 99, I went to Walmart with my ex-wife, and they had this display of wallpaper border rolls. This is back when they were in style, I guess.
Right.
And she's like, you should sell that on eBay. And I was like, what? Who would buy Walmart crap on eBay? But wasn't much of an investment. So I bought 5 rolls of wallpaper border with a rooster on it. And they sold for $63
Each?
for the 5. So
Okay, great.
paid 5, yeah.
Yeah.
So I went back and bought 3 more lots, one more rooster, one had like a gazebo on it, and there was another one. Sold them all for about $35 per lot.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the way eBay was back then, I got 3 money orders in the mail, each saying, here's the money for the wallpaper border. And I didn't know which one went with.
Oh, no.
So I don't know how I worked that out, but I gave up on the wallpaper border. And a few months later, there was about 100 people all trying to sell that same Walmart.
Oh, you were ahead of the curve. Good
I was
grief.
ahead of the curve. All right, here's a story that I find amusing and my wife does not. So you can be the judge. We were in the hospital. She was in labor with our youngest son, the 3rd child, my 4th child. And it was going really slow. The contractions weren't really getting much closer. And we were bored. And I said, there's a Walmart nearby. I'll go buy you some snacks and some DVDs to watch. So I went to Walmart and I got the snacks and the DVDs. And then I saw that they had a clearance table in the electronics section. It was loaded with kind of high-end digital cameras that were all marked down to $49.95. So I picked one up and looked it up, and I was like, this is worth some money. Picked up a second one and looked it up, and that was worth some money. I picked up a third one, and I got a text from her that said, come back. That's all it said. And I was like, she's having the baby. And so I almost abandoned the cart and ran out of there, but I raced to the checkout and I took off. And I went back and said, "What's going on? Did you have the baby? What's happening?" She's like, "Nothing. I just missed you. Why were you gone so long?"
You're like, I was out buying inventory to make money to support this child. What are you doing?
Yeah,
Take
yeah,
your
yeah.
hospital bill.
Well, I left the other 8 cameras on the table or whatever. The next morning, the baby was in the nursery. She was asleep. I went back to Walmart and the rest of the cameras were gone. So, but I bought those 3 for 150 and they sold for, I think, 750 on eBay.
That's great.
I spent a lot of time thinking about the money I left sitting there. She has no sympathy for me at all. Like, what were you doing looking at cameras while I was in labor?
You're like, I was thinking about our future. I was making sure we could buy formula and start his college fund and all the things in the future.
Those are all the things I should have thought of to say. You're right.
Well, yeah, we all have those moments later. But that was what you said, 99?
No, this would have been 6 years ago.
Oh, okay. So that's pretty amazing that you even got any, because retail arbitrage started really blowing up in about 2012.
Yeah, I was lucky.
Where you could tell in the stores who was doing it by the amount of clearance stuff, they were putting in their cart. I mean, you could just tell. So
Yeah.
the fact that maybe it was a higher price point. Because I got involved in all the food products, the seasonal food products, the Crusties mixes, and all the flavored M&Ms, and all that stuff at holiday time. And because it wasn't all online, and it was a lot of stuff was local only. So in low price point, you go to the grocery store when they're buy one get one free, get a whole bunch, pay $1 for a cake mix, put it on Amazon for $15 and just do that over and over again. But maybe because it was a higher price point, that limited who was going to buy them to flip.
Well, unfortunately, somebody bought the rest. So, oh well. All right, one last cautionary tale, I guess, from Walmart. I bought 2 colored laser printers that were on like super clearance, and those things go for a lot of money. I actually sold one last week for $200. But I think it was $1,000 new or something.
Mm-hmm.
So these were way marked down. I bought them. I didn't want to open the box, so I took pictures of the box, and they sold for way more than I paid for them. And the first guy was happy, but the second guy was like, "What are you trying to pull, man? This thing's used. It's got dust all over it. It's got paper jammed inside." And it was like a return or something that they had taped up and put back on.
Oh, you didn't look inside.
No, I didn't want to break the seal. I should have, I guess. So, yeah. Oh, well. And I think it might have been the same with the cameras, because one of them had a big fingerprint on the lens, I remember. I think they're putting the returns out on that.
Yeah, so I learned that the hard way. I did that with water filters.
Oh, God.
From BJ's Wholesale. It's kind of like Sam's, Costco. And there was all these water filters, just dirt cheap. And like the kind that you screw on to the faucet that has the cylindrical thing next to it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got them home. I was like, I'm going to test one to make sure it works. Got it on my faucet. The thing exploded. I am thankful it didn't put somebody's eye out.
Oh, my God.
And started looking at all the other boxes, and all of them were in pieces. You could tell they'd been used. There should have been a recall because they exploded. And I think I did take them back and get my money back, but I was like, y'all might need to be more careful trying to squeeze every dollar out of every product, because this could have hurt somebody.
I don't think used water filters are cool. I don't know.
Well, I thought they were new because they looked brand new, and BJ's Wholesale, like they wouldn't sell something used like that. Somebody just wasn't paying attention and put them out on the sales floor.
Well, I'm glad you were smart enough to test them, because someone would have been unhappy for sure.
But definitely your cautionary tale is, even if it's new in the box, you need to open it and see what's in there, because people do that. I know a person who does this, the switcheroo. Every time they buy something new, like a new coffee maker, they'll buy the new coffee maker, take that out, put the old one in the box and return it to the store, hoping that the salesperson, the cashier, doesn't look inside and see they're giving them an old, crappy, broken one.
Yeah.
People do that. That's their way of life. So if you find it at a yard sale, garage sale, clearance at a retail store, open it, look at it, make sure it works. And then you can put that in your listing. We opened it to make sure it works. Your customer will appreciate that.
That's good advice. Good advice.
Okay. Great. Moving
All right,
on.
moving on to yard sales. My first big sale ever was from a yard sale. I found this rusty old parlor stove. It was like from the 1840s or something. It had Greek columns on it and an eagle.
Oh, wow.
The guy actually tried to talk me out of buying it for $50. He's like, that's going to take a lot of work. And I was like, I had just watched a show on TV about people that restore these, and they claim that some of them were worth like $20,000. So,
oh, wow.
I took it home, put it on eBay as a local pickup, and it sold for $530.
Ah.
That was the first big sale I ever made. That was like 99. Back a little over a year ago, when I was still playing that game with my kids, there was a yard sale down the street, and the lady said she had Star Wars toys. So I went, and she had this huge lot of the big Star Wars ships and everything. And I was disappointed to discover there was a guy there who had driven 2 hours to get some of this stuff. And he made a pile, but he didn't have enough money, so he had to put some back. And he didn't know what he was doing because he didn't buy it was a remote control sand crawler toy. It's like the rarest Star Wars toy there is, I guess. So I got that for $20, and I got some other Star Wars toys. And then she also had a set of 3 moose antlers that she wanted $100 for. And I talked her down to $75. So I put 2 of the moose antlers together as a pair, and they sold for $420. And then the Star Wars crawler sold for $460. And then I made money on the other stuff. So, and I still have an antler left over, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Can you sell those on eBay anymore?
There's still a bunch of them on there. Some people cut them up and make dog chews out of them and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, eBay keeps changing what's not allowed. So for the listeners, make sure you check that to see if it's allowed, because it might be allowed right now, but in 6 months, it might not.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Animal parts. You can't sell human parts. I know that.
I know. That's too bad.
Yeah. Can't sell your kidney.
I know. I could get by with 1 kidney.
Right. Those are worth a lot of money. I one last yard sale story. I went to one around the corner from my house, and I found this. It was a kind of a wooden plaque with a wire sticking out of it. I have no idea what it was, but it was painted blue, and it had a big white M on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the colors for our local high school. And I collect anything that has to do with our high school. So, and on the back, it said, this was made by Sparky so-and-so in 1967. So like, cool. This is a historic artifact as far as I'm concerned. So I bought it for $1, and I run the history Facebook page for this town. I have since 2010. And I put a picture of it on there, and I got a message from a lady saying, that Sparky guy, he's my dad. And it would mean the world to me if I could have that. Would you be willing to sell it? And I said, well, I like to double my money. So I paid $1. I'll sell it to you for $2. How about that? And so we arranged to meet. And then a couple hours later, I got the same message from another lady. Hey, that's my dad. I don't have anything of his. Is there any way you could possibly let me have it? I was like, well, I just talked to, I guess, your sister, and I said she could have it, but if you really want to, she'd probably let you have it. She's like, oh, no, you don't understand. We have the same dad, but a different mother, and we don't get along. We haven't talked in 10 years.
Oh, okay.
There's no way she'll ever let me have it. This is a tragedy. And I was like, why do I get myself in these situations?
Well, I guess I'll have to cut it in half.
There you go. That's a good one. So I talked to the first lady. I'm like, I heard from your sister. She says you haven't talked in all these years, and she's all upset. And, I said you could have it. Is there any way you'd let her have it? And she's like, well, it's her birthday tomorrow, so I'm going to call her and let her and give it to her. So these sisters that hadn't talked in 10 years, I guess, came together over this.
Bringing families together through
Yes,
reselling. That should be your next book.
it should. I did that a lot with the garbage too. I'd find boxes of people's photos and stuff, and I'd bring it back to the family. And there's a guy in the next town over who won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry, and I found his daughter's wedding album from the 50s.
Oh my
Gave that
gosh.
back to the family. And that's my favorite part there.
So you're a garbage rescuer.
Oh yeah.
You need a cape.
If anybody's thinking about being a garbage man and you really love old stuff and don't want to see it go in the trash, think of another career. I'll say that.
You need to come up with a costume with like a cape and a mask and like a t-shirt that says, super rescuer.
Super trash rescue man. Yeah. All right. Moving on to thrift stores. I know this is where you get most of your stuff, right?
Well, just because it's time efficient.
Right.
It's not that I don't like the other things, but you'll go all 20 miles to this awesome estate sale and you'll get there and there's this huge line of people. We're only letting 5 people in at a time. And you waste your whole day. I don't know. Thrift stores, it's like, when they're open, when they're closed. It's organized, what the prices are. And, I'm on a mission to buy stuff. And
right.
if you're just kind of like rambling around and you see a garage sale and stop at it, that's one thing. But I'm like on a mission to find items, to get them home and get them sold. So it's not that I don't like garage sales or estate sales. It's just from an efficiency standpoint, I prefer thrift stores.
I like thrift stores too. The first thing I thought I'd talk about was I saw this thing in a thrift store. It looked like an ice cream maker. It was a big bucket with a motor on the top.
Mm-hmm.
It was way too big to be an ice cream maker. And I kept seeing it in there. Like week after week, they kept lowering the price. And this thrift store had it was like sell hell. You couldn't look anything up in there. So I looked at it. I went outside and Googled it and discovered it was a commercial golf ball washer. It could wash up to like 500 golf balls at a time. And he had it marked down to $49.95. And he's like, if you can tell me what that is, I'll give you 10% off. I said, it's a golf ball washer. It's like, wow, nobody else has guessed that. I got it for $45, sold for $430. The only reason I bring it up isn't because of the money. It's because it's the only thing I ever sold in 22 years where I forgot to take the price tag off it before I shipped it out.
Oh, no.
So we paid all this money for it and it showed up with grease pencil, $49.95.
Oh, no.
I was horrified, but he gave me a good review. So don't do that.
I mean, some buyers understand that you're the one out there scavenging and finding these things, and that is a service worth paying for. And you have it and they don't. So
it's true.
It's yours. You can charge whatever you want. Doesn't matter what the original price was.
Yes, exactly.
Unless you get one of these people that's like, I can't believe that you only paid $50 for this and you price gouged me for $500.
Yeah, I was afraid of that. of it.
Well, they were happy, so that ended well.
So next I found a hat. I don't normally sell clothing really, but I found a hat that looked like a policeman's hat. It was blue with like the shiny brim.
Mm-hmm.
But the badge said Yellowstone National Park Transportation Division. It had these cool pins on it. One was like a bumblebee. It was so perfect. I thought it was fairly recent, but it turned out it was from the 1930s, actually.
Wow.
So I bought that for $5. I couldn't find any comps, but I thought it was cool. I took it home. I put it on the mail table. My kids were wearing it around the house like a costume for a couple of weeks. It's like, I better list this before it gets ruined. And I think this was the year that was like their 100th anniversary or something.
Okay.
So I put it on eBay, and if you had pressed me for a buy it now price, I would have put $50 on it.
Uh-huh.
But I don't do buy it now. So sold for $698. So I was happy with that.
I would be happy with that too.
Now I went into my stupid Goodwill, hired an eBay expert a while ago, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well.
Haven't found much good since then, but right before that, I went in there and I found a book. It was this thin paperback book of communist propaganda art from the Soviet Union. It was printed in 1921, which was just a few years after the revolution, I guess. And it was $5, and the art was cool. I like art. It was very simplistic, and I remember one had a rich guy on his knees pulling weeds while this farmer with a pitchfork stood over him and stuff. So I bought this for $5, and I started trying to look it up at home, and I found like 3 auction records that were $2,500 to $4,000 or something. And some people had even cut out the illustrations and framed them and gotten like $400 a piece. So it's like, this is worth some money. And I sent pictures to, I think, Christie's or something, which is in England.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, we do an auction estimate of $2,500, but we don't really want to sell it. You should find somewhere in America. So I didn't know what to do. I listed it on eBay with an opening bid of $1,500, and it sat there doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Then finally, a guy in France sent me an offer of $800. So it took me a couple of days to think about it. I knew it was worth way more, but I paid $5, so I took the $800. So that was my best. That was my last good Goodwill find before they hired the eBay expert.
Well, but you have to keep in mind that the quote eBay expert, it's what do they know? And how much work are they doing really researching it? And, it's all about that person, because, we've all been that person who's got to work till closing and you don't want to be there and just kind of halfway doing your job just while the time is passing. And so I just say, don't let that scare you if you're out there and the store has an eBay person. Like, how long are they going to even last? Because
how many things do they have to look up?
Yeah, and they already know that if they buy these things and sell them on their own, they're going to make way more money than being paid $8 an hour to be the eBay expert. Yeah, I mean, things slip through all the time. I just don't feel like looking anything else up. I'm just going to put $10 on this, and it happens all the time. And it's a human part of it, not the Goodwill system part of it. Everybody knows that all people don't do their jobs right.
Right. That's true.
You ever gotten wrong food at a restaurant? It's that kind of thing. So if you go into it with the attitude of abundance and I'm gonna find things and the world is on my side and go look at what you're drawn to, use your intuition, you're gonna find good things. So I don't buy that whole thing of there's nothing in Goodwill anymore because they're all selling everything online, because it's just impossible. There's too much stuff.
That's true. I still go there. So
I know. It's just, I think that's an excuse when people aren't finding stuff. And I know I haven't been to every Goodwill in the United States, but there's always more stuff to find. And you pull it out of the trash.
That's right. People don't know what stuff's worth.
Yeah, exactly. So move on to your next item, because you are, I think, going to get the award for the most prepared guest I've ever had.
Thank you. Thank you.
Zach sent me this list of, here's what I'm going to talk about. And I've gone through my sales, and you're ready to share your history with everybody.
I am. I hope somebody learns.
Yeah.
Well, my last thrift store sale, I went into Goodwill and they had a drum set that was kind of tumbled into one of those huge plastic bins.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been playing drums on and off since 9th grade, so I'm familiar with the popular brands. So I pulled out the snare drum and it said Starion, which is a real crap brand. And they wanted $400. And I'm like, you guys are nuts. So I left. And then I came back a week later and it was still sitting there. I was like, you fools. I looked closer and the other drums were a different brand called Camco, which I had never heard of. And if I haven't heard of it, usually it's crap. So I almost left again, but I looked it up. And somebody on eBay had a Camco drum set that had been repainted with paint. Mm-hmm. It was missing a drum and the bidding was up to $1,500 with still going up. Mm-hmm. So I bought this drum set and I took an offer of $2,500 on it. And I made some mistakes. I undercharged on shipping by $200. So
Oh,
that
ouch.
and when the guy got it, he was all mad about a condition issue that he hadn't noticed in the picture. So he demanded $200 back. But even with that, I made like $1,500 profit. So that was my best thrift store.
Excellent.
It's not fun shipping drum sets, but
No, I can imagine that would be a bit of a project.
yes. All right, I don't know if we're running out of time. We got to move on to the trash.
No, that's what I want to hear is the trash. We got time.
One thing that kills me about trash, especially around here where everything's old, is people throwing away old stuff, you know. My helper on the back of the truck was like, "Hey, there's some old farmer's almanacs back here." And I went back there and someone had tossed a collection someone had put together. It was every year from 1812 to 1947.
Ha
And some older ones that dated back to 1802. And I ended up selling most of them for $200, and I kept some as a decoration. But why do you throw that in the recycle? Just kills me.
I know why. It's because they're cleaning out from either a death or someone moved to assisted living or whatever reason they're cleaning out.
Right.
And it's too overwhelming. And they don't know what to do with it.
That's
And they don't know, like we know, what things are worth. And
That's true.
some people, even if they know that it would be valuable, it's like, I don't have time to deal with that. You know, I'm here. I came from out of town to clean out parents' things and I got to get back. And it's a time thing. It's like their time is limited and they're overwhelmed with grief and whatever. And they just don't know what to do with it. That's my interpretation.
That leads to the next story, actually. There was a big house in town that I think architecturally it was really interesting. It was different. But the guy that lived there was a hoarder and he died like back in the 80s or 70s or something. And the house was just full of junk. And they ended up pulling out 7 dumpsters worth of that stuff. I had a chance to pick through 2 of them. And I still wish I could know what came out of the others, but I left behind so much stuff that I would normally take because I just filled my entire truck, you know. But there were 2 items from there that I sold at the same time. One was a big old plant pot that I thought my wife might want to put a plant in, but it turned out to be Roseville pottery, and that sold for $220 maybe. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, from the same pile, I found a plastic squirt gun that was shaped like Frankenstein's head. And then I grabbed it because I thought it was cool. I never guessed that a stupid plastic squirt gun would be worth anything. But I looked it up, and there's a company in the 70s, I think it's called AMI or something, and they made monster stuff. And the rarest of the toys they made were these squirt guns. They made a King Kong that at the time was selling for $250 to $300. The next one up was the Frankenstein I had. I listed it and the bidding went up to $750. And then I discovered it had a crack in it that I hadn't seen. So I had to restart the thing. And with the crack, it sold for $530, I think. And the guy who found it was like, "Oh my God, this is my holy grail. Thank you so much."
Oh gosh.
It's like, God, it's a squirt gun from Hong Kong. How good. And if you ever find the Creature from the Black Lagoon squirt gun, that one's $2,000 and up. So keep your eyes open for that.
Okay, squirt guns. Yeah, you're right. I have not been looking at those in the toy section.
I've been looking, believe me, but I haven't found any more yet.
That's overwhelming to me, the toy section, because there's just so much cheap China crap in there. Just, I used to call like any toy from the dollar store was called a 24-hour whatever, 24-hour Barbie, 24-hour water gun, because it's going to fall apart in 24 hours.
That's true. Yeah, that stuff is
so
junk.
you get a lot of that, and you really do have to look at everything individually.
That's true.
Unless you just know, oh, this is a Fisher Price thing from the 70s, you know. Who would think plastic squirt guns?
I wouldn't. I had no idea.
Either.
It was a happy surprise.
Yeah, I bet.
So next, I put this stuff on your site. I went into work about a month ago, And someone had just dumped off a bunch of old computer stuff, so they didn't have to pay for it, I think.
Right.
And I found her an old keyboard. I found a pile, and I'm like, geez, I just got here. I've already got this big pile of stuff. And then there's actually a big trash pile at the other end of the facility where people bring in stuff all week. And I went down there and I found all this fur trapping stuff. It was fur trap.
Oh, booklets.
Yeah. And what happened was this guy in a nearby town had run a trapping and hunting store for 60 years and then died. And they tossed all his junk. And most of it had already been crushed up. But I managed to fill this giant plastic tub full of old books and catalogs. I think the oldest thing in there was from 1898, but a lot of it was from like 1910 or 1915. And I got over $1,200 for the trapping stuff and various lots. And I just sold yesterday another computer monitor that I found that day, which brings me up to like over $1,600 for all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was my best day's haul right there, I think. So that was pretty good.
Paper stuff is, it's just unreal how much it's worth.
Yeah.
And
it's a niche or niche, however you pronounce it. I was kind of mad that I had left so much behind, but I think by the time I sold all that stuff, I had flooded the market with a few people who actually collect that junk. But
well, and it's the more specific and out of the mainstream, the higher price you're going to get. Like Lynn that you mentioned with metal detecting, she has like a new age store. And so she has an eye for books and tarot cards and all of that. That's a very specific product. And, some of those things go for over $1,000.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what any of that is.
Yeah, I know. It's just what you know.
I think I'll tell you about the most valuable thing I think I found.
Okay.
There was a neighborhood in Oklahoma I was picking up. It was brand new, nice houses. It was like professionals that lived there. One thing was kind of weird. There was a dentist who lived there who had 3 big trash cans. And he would fill one with trash. And for like 6 weeks, he'd fill the other 2 with unopened cases of Sensodyne toothpaste that weren't expired. And these were like $70 a case on Amazon. I was selling them for $20 or $25, but in the same neighborhood, there was a doctor. I opened his trash can and it was full to the top with samples of this heart medication. Oh. And I Googled it, and one dose, the retail price on one dose was $400. And there must have been 1,000 pills in there. Like, this is $400,000 worth of medication. And I sat in front of the guy's house for 5 minutes trying to think, how can I sell this stuff? Sell medicine on eBay.
Right.
Thought I'd probably get arrested if I tried selling it somewhere else.
Well, you can't sell prescription. You can sell the counter, but you can't do prescription.
So I dumped $400,000 in the truck and moved. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, there's some things you just can't sell, I guess.
I know. Everybody's had that moment where it's like, oh, this is so valuable, but not allowed. Can't do that.
Yes. Yeah. I thought I'd tell you about the worst thing I ever found in the trash.
Okay.
A lot of candidates, but not long before I quit, I was picking through a house clean out. It was a lady died, and I was finding stuff from the 40s of art. And there were a couple of temp workers in there poking around too. And they not only found her urn, but dropped it and smashed it. And there was ashes all over the place.
Oh, no.
So I've seen a lot of house clean outs. I've never seen them toss the person with all the
actual residents.
Yeah, that was horrible. All right. So, and just last week, I found a Bose radio that sold for $81. And even more exciting than that, I found about 12 rolls of packing tape that hadn't been used.
Oh, it's always great to find supplies.
Oh my God, that's great. So one last story, my only Craigslist story. Right after I sold the drum set and made like $1,500, I had $2,000 and I was looking for something else to sell. And this guy on Craigslist said he had a Abraham Lincoln signed document for $2,000.
Ah.
And he had these documents signed by a bunch of early presidents. And so, like a fool, I didn't research these before I went over there. I gave him, I hung out with him for a while, looked at his stuff, and gave him $2,000 and started home. And I was so excited to see how much money I was going to make that I pulled over and started Googling these things. And I discovered that these were common and they were never signed by the president. They were signed by the secretary.
Oh,
All the stuff I just bought was about $300 worth. So I called the guy. I'm like, dude, oh my God, I just made a huge mistake. My wife's going to kill me, man. I just found out these aren't real. Oh my God, is there any way you could find it in your heart to give me my money back? And he said, okay. So I turned around and went back. And he met me at the door and handed me the money. And he's like, this is the first time I've ever sold anything. I let you in my house. I don't know what kind of scam you're pulling on me or what you're doing.
oh no.
But just so you know, my wife and my son are locked in the bedroom and I have a gun in here. And if I ever see you around my property again, I'll shoot you. And I was like, no, man, no, it's not like that. I just made a big mistake. Here, take your wife to dinner on me. I tried to give him $40. I think I convinced him a little bit, but I think that taught me not to spend a lot of money on stuff that I don't know anything about.
Right. Mm-hmm. Stick with the trash where it's free.
I'll stick to the free stuff.
Okay. Well, wow. You have shared a lot of information and we've been going for over an hour. So
very nice.
Fast. So the last question is advice for people just getting into this or trash picking people.
I guess my advice for people is realize that all you can control is your own actions. You know, you can't control whether anyone wants to buy your stuff, but you can control how many items you list. You can control how good the pictures you take are and what kind of customer service you're going to give to people. And so make those your goals, I guess. Just action goals where you can control stuff.
That's great advice because, yeah, there's so much about reselling that is beyond your control.
That is true.
It doesn't change anything to worry about it, to constantly think about it. That's another reason I just do all my own eBay stuff is I'm in a different mode when I'm listing than when I'm creating something. Mm-hmm. So, I can make the listing look nice. I can pick the keywords. I can choose the price. All of that, focus on what you can do. And that really empowers you. The most miserable people I know are ones that are worried about everybody else or what's going to happen to them or what could happen to them. And it's like, I don't want to live like that.
Right.
I can go to the thrift store and I can buy these items and I can bring them home and make them look really nice and get them in the hands of somebody who's going to appreciate it. And, that's the world I live in. I don't live in the world of what if somebody else gets there first, or what if there's not going to be anything for me, or what if nobody buys this, or what if I make a mistake? That's not productive.
That's actually what I should have said. Thank you.
No, I'm on board with what you said. I agree with that. So
I would say my other advice is just realize you're right. There is an unlimited amount of deals out there. You don't have to worry about what everybody else is doing. Even if someone gets to something before you, there'll be another yard sale tomorrow. There'll be a whole new load of stuff at the thrift store next week.
Or somebody coming out of the back of the thrift store in 5 minutes with a whole bunch more stuff that no one's seen before.
Right.
It's going to be put out right in front of you. That happens to me all the time without even stalking the employees. Stuff just gets put on the shelf. I don't have to hover over them while they're putting it out. It just keeps appearing. So,
well, like you said, think abundance. There's enough stuff for you and me and everybody else.
Right. Okay. Well, it was great to meet you face to face, and we'll see you and your amazing finds on the Facebook group.
Great. Nice talking to you.
All right. Bye.
It was great to finally meet Zachary face to face and peek into his life as a rescuer of old stuff. The book I mentioned called One Red Paperclip is by Kyle MacDonald, Macdonald, if you want to look that up and read it. It's pretty interesting. So it may even be an audiobook so you can listen while you work. Okay, today's trivia question is, when and why were high-heeled shoes invented? Here are 5 seconds to think it over. Okay, the answer is the origin of high heels can be traced back to 15th century Persia, when soldiers wore them to help secure their feet in stirrups. Persian migrants brought the shoe trend to Europe, where male aristocrats wore them to appear taller and more formidable. Most notably, Louis XIV, who was only 5 feet 4 inches tall, wore high heels and a giant wig to appear taller. And another tidbit about that era that you can impress your friends with this knowledge is that the Palace of Versailles did not have bathrooms. I picked this up on a History Channel show one time. There were no bathrooms as we would know them. Courtiers and royalty used decorative commodes in each room, while commoners simply relieved themselves in the hallways or stairwells. No one bothered to house train the royal dogs, and servants did not consider cleaning up after them to be part of their job description. So, one of the most elaborate and expensive structures ever built was pretty yucky and stinky. I mean, now it has bathrooms for visiting tourists, but originally it did not. So that's something you don't pick up from looking at paintings of Louis XIV or the palace or that time period, was that it was actually pretty gross in the Palace of Versailles. And aren't you glad you tuned in to eBay the right way to learn all this extraneous information? So that wraps up another riveting episode of eBay the Right Way. And as the famous Edward R. Murrow said, good night and good luck. Talk to you next week. Bye.